All right, so are we ready to map out this Australian road trip you've been dreaming of? You've sent over a ton of info. It looks like we've got everything from those classic coastal drives to outback adventures. But before we hit the gas, tell me, what's at the heart of this trip for you? Are you chasing breathtaking landscapes or adrenaline-pumping activities? Or are you more interested in a deep dive into Aboriginal culture?
It's amazing, isn't it? How a single country can offer such a diverse range of experiences. Knowing what your priorities are will really help us pinpoint that perfect route. So are you picturing yourself hiking on those rugged mountain trails? Or maybe surfing those legendary breaks? Or perhaps immersing yourself in that spiritual heart of Australia?
Okay, yeah, good point. Gotta nail that down first. Let's start with the when. We've got info here about each season. It looks like we've got spring wildflowers, summer beach vibes, autumn foliage. We've even got some info about winter whale watching. But I imagine knowing how vast Australia is, the best time to go probably shifts pretty drastically depending on which route you're taking, huh?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
Like, take the wildflower blooms in Western Australia, for example.
Hmm.
You mentioned Kings Park, but have you ever heard of the Everlasting's Wildflower Trail?
I think so.
Yeah, it's near Coal Seam Conservation Park. And during the spring, oh my gosh, it's just a sea of color. But of course, if you're chasing those iconic summer shots of Bondi Beach, with that turquoise water sparkling, then summer's got to be your go-to.
So matching the season to the experience. Now, even before we think about packing the car, there's that whole planning stage. We've got info here about visas, budgeting, transport. But it seems like choosing the right vehicle is absolutely crucial, especially given all the types of terrain in Australia. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it really is the foundation of any successful road trip,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Australia. Imagine trying to tackle the Gibb River Road, which is a notoriously rugged 4WD track in Western Australia, in a tiny hatchback.
Oh.
Yeah, not ideal. So think about what the purpose of your trip is. Are you mainly going to be sticking to well-maintained highways? Or are you going to be venturing off the beaten path a bit?
Yeah.
You got to consider the group size, luggage, and of course your budget. A comfortable sedan might be perfect for just cruising along the Great Ocean Road, but for those remote outback adventures, a sturdy 4x4 is going to be essential.
All right. Choosing those right wheels is key. Now, something that's really jumping out from all this material is the emphasis on road rules and safety, especially driving on the left side of the road. We've got the basics covered here: speed limits, seat belts, alcohol limits, and no phones while driving. But are there any surprising road rules or maybe hazards unique to Australia that our listeners should know about?
Oh, absolutely. One thing that often catches visitors off guard is just how prevalent roundabouts are, especially in urban areas. And the key thing to remember there is yielding to traffic that's already in the roundabout.
Right.
It's a pretty simple rule, but it's essential for a smooth, sailing on those Australian roads.
Good point. Anything else?
Another crucial factor, especially when you're driving those longer distances, is fatigue management. Australia is huge, and those vast distances can lead to driver fatigue, which is a major safety concern. So plan your itinerary with regular rest stops, share the driving if you can, and never push yourself beyond your limits.
Okay, that's crucial advice,
Yeah.
especially when you're tackling some of those epic outback routes. And speaking of outback daving, we've got some info here about road trains. Yeah, those massive trucks that can be a little intimidating to share the road with. What's the etiquette there? How do you navigate those encounters?
Yeah, road trains are definitely a common sight on Australian highways,
Mhm.
especially in those remote areas. Remember, they can be up to 53.5 meters long, so overtaking them requires extra caution. Always wait for a clear, straight stretch of road with, ample visibility. And keep in mind that they take a long time to accelerate and brake, so give them plenty of space and plenty of time to maneuver.
Noted. Now let's talk about the wildlife. We've got a lot of info here about wildlife encounters, which sounds amazing, but also potentially hazardous when you're on the road. What are some things our listeners should keep in mind?
Yeah, Australia's unique wildlife is a major draw card, of course,
Hmm.
but it does mean you need to be extra vigilant on the roads. You've got kangaroos, wombats, even emus that can dart out unexpectedly, especially at dawn and dusk. Be extra cautious when you're driving in those rural areas and national parks. Reduce your speed and always be scanning those roadsides. And in case of an accident, it's essential to check for injured wildlife and then contact the local authorities or wildlife rescue organizations.
Okay, that's important information. So we've got fatigue management, road train etiquette, wildlife awareness. Any other essential safety tips before we move on to the fun part? All those iconic routes.
Yes, one more thing. Be prepared for emergencies. Carry a comprehensive first aid kit, a satellite phone or PLB, a personal locator beacon for those really remote areas, and familiarize yourself with basic first aid and maybe even some survival techniques. Because Australia's remote beauty can be unforgiving, so it's always better to be over-prepared than caught off guard, right?
Excellent advice. Okay, with those safety essentials covered, let's dive into the heart of this deep dive. Those incredible Australian road trips you've been dreaming of. We've got info on 7 epic routes. The legendary Great Ocean Road, the Pacific Coast Drive from Sydney to Brisbane, that outback adventure from Adelaide to Darwin through the Red Centre, the unique challenge of the Nullarbor Plain, the untouched paradise of Tasmania's East Coast, the off-the-beaten-path Savannah Way, and the alpine beauty of Victoria's High Country. Where should we start?
Let's begin with a classic. How about the Great Ocean Road? It's 243 kilometers of just dramatic coastline. It's like a masterpiece sculpted by nature. You've got rugged cliffs, pristine beaches, and of course those iconic 12 apostles rising from the Southern Ocean.
I've heard so much about the 12 Apostles, but I have to admit my knowledge is pretty surface level. What's the story behind these natural wonders? What makes them so captivating?
What's truly fascinating about the 12 apostles is that they're not actually apostles, nor are there 12 of them. Over time, that relentless power of the Southern Ocean has eroded the limestone cliffs, and that's left those majestic rock stacks just standing tall, and they're constantly changing. Some collapse over time. It's a testament to the, raw power of nature.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's not just about that visual spectacle, but also that geological history and the, ever-changing nature of the coastline. What else makes the Great Ocean Road special?
Well, if you're a keen hiker, the Great Ocean Walk is a must-do. It's a 104-kilometer trail, and it kind of weaves along those cliff tops, offering those breathtaking views of the coast. And it's a chance to discover hidden coves and secluded beaches. Imagine yourself walking through those ancient rainforests, spotting koalas in the eucalyptus trees, breathing in that fresh ocean air. It's an experience that stays with you long after you've left.
Okay, you've sold me on the Great Ocean Walk. It sounds like the perfect way to experience that coast from a different perspective. Now, for those who want to combine those stunning views with a bit of history, I see we have Lockhart Gorge on the must-see list. What's the story behind this dramatic landmark?
Lockhart Gorge is named after a ship that met a tragic end there in 1878. The Lockhart, a clipper ship sailing from England to Melbourne, struck a reef in thick fog just meters from the shore. Of the 54 passengers and crew, only 2 teenagers, Tom Pierce and Eva Carmichael, survived, clinging to wreckage and swimming to that sheltered gorge. It's a pretty poignant reminder, isn't it, of the fragility of life and the power of the ocean.
Wow, that's a haunting tale. It definitely adds another layer of depth to the natural beauty of the gorge. So we've got dramatic cliffs, secluded beaches, a shipwreck story, and I understand that the Great Ocean Road is also a surfer's paradise.
Absolutely. The Great Ocean Road is a mecca for surfers. You've got legendary breaks like Bell's Beach and Winky Pop that draw enthusiasts from all over the globe. And even if you're not a surfer yourself, watching those skilled riders take on those powerful waves is pretty spectacular in itself. And if you are wanting to learn, there are plenty of surf schools dotted along the coast.
Okay, so we've got breathtaking scenery, a shipwreck tale, surfing hotspots. I can see why the Great Ocean Road is so iconic. Now, let's zoom up the East Coast a bit, from Sydney to Brisbane. This route seems like the quintessential Australian beach road trip, hitting all the highlights. Byron Bay, Port Macquarie, and of course the Gold Coast.
You've got it. It's a journey that really captures that essence of Australia's laid-back coastal lifestyle. From those bohemian beach towns to those vibrant cities with stunning national parks sprinkled along the way.
I know Byron Bay is famous for its beautiful beaches and, like you said, those bohemian vibes, but I'm curious about some of those maybe less explored spots. What are some hidden gems along this route that you think our listeners should know about?
Well, while those popular spots are definitely worth visiting, venturing off the main route can lead to some, truly unique discoveries. Like, instead of just passing through Port Macquarie, consider taking a detour to the Bago Maze and Vineyard.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a whimsical hedge maze, and it's set on this stunning property with a winery and, a cheese tasting room. It's the perfect blend of fun and indulgence, and it's got beautiful views of the Hastings River.
Okay, that's definitely going on the list. A hedge maze, wine, and cheese. Sounds like my kind of detour. Now let's switch gears completely and head inland for a true outback adventure, Adelaide to Darwin through the Red Centre. We're talking iconic Uluru, Alice Springs, Kings Canyon. This route seems like a journey into the heart of Australia.
It is. It really is. This route is all about experiencing that raw beauty and the immense scale of the outback. Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, is a must-see. But instead of just witnessing the sunrise or sunset there, why not consider taking a guided walk with an Aboriginal elder?
Oh.
You'll learn about the cultural significance of the rock, hear those ancient stories, and connect with the land on a, much deeper level.
Wow, that sounds incredibly powerful. It's amazing to think that Uluru has been a sacred site for the Anangu people for over 60,000 years. It's so much more than just a rock formation.
Exactly. And further north, in Kings Canyon, instead of sticking to just that popular rim walk, consider exploring the lesser-known Kathleen Springs Walk. It's a pretty easy 2.6-kilometer trail, and it leads to this beautiful spring-fed waterhole surrounded by lush vegetation. It's a peaceful oasis in that rugged landscape, perfect for, a quiet reflection and a chance to spot some unique bird species.
Okay, I'm adding that to my list. A peaceful oasis after hiking through that canyon sounds divine. And speaking of the outback, I know I've got some practical tips here about desert travel. What are some things our listener needs to know before tackling this route?
Planning and preparation are paramount when you're traveling in the outback. The distances between towns can be vast, so make sure you've researched fuel stops. Carry extra water and supplies. Inform someone of your itinerary. Check road conditions before you set off because the weather can impact closures. Download the Emergency Plus app. It uses your phone's GPS to provide your location to emergency services, even when you've got limited reception.
Fantastic advice. Safety first, especially when you're venturing into such remote territory. Okay, so we've explored dramatic coastlines, lush rainforests, and the rugged outback, but I think the Nullarbor Plain presents a unique challenge. We're talking about Australia's longest stretch of straight road. 12,256 kilometers of seemingly endless horizon. Any tips on staying engaged and safe during such, monotonous drive?
The Nullarbor is a true test of endurance, but the rewards are definitely there. You've got stark beauty, you've got that sense of solitude. You can break up the drive with stops at unique spots like the Head of Bight. It's where you can watch southern right whales from those cliff tops during their migration season. That's from June to October. Pack audiobooks or podcasts for entertainment and download those stargazing apps. The night sky in the Nullarbor is breathtaking.
Okay, so we've got whale watching, stargazing, and audiobooks to break up the monotony. It sounds like the Nullarbor is a journey for those who appreciate the beauty of emptiness. Now, Tasmania seems like a world apart from the mainland, like a sanctuary of untouched wilderness and, unique wildlife. We've got the Hobart to Launceston route highlighted here, with Wineglass Bay and Freycinet National Park as must-sees. What makes this Tasmanian road trip special?
Well, Tasmania is like stepping back in time. You've got those pristine beaches, ancient rainforests, snow-capped mountains, and wildlife you won't find anywhere else. Freycinet National Park is a highlight, and Wineglass Bay is one of the most photographed beaches in the world. But instead of just snapping a picture from the lookout, why not consider taking the lesser-known Hazards Track? It's a challenging but rewarding hike that offers panoramic views of the peninsula, and keep an eye out for the elusive Tasmanian devil. They're incredibly rare in the wild, but Freycinet is one of their remaining strongholds.
Okay, so we've got breathtaking views, unique wildlife, and a challenging hike. It sounds like Tasmania offers a perfect blend of adventure and tranquility. Now, for our listener who's looking for a truly off-the-beaten-path adventure, we've got the Savannah Way. It stretches from Cairns to Broome, cutting through the heart of the country and showcasing a side of Australia that, very few get to experience. What sets this route apart from the more popular East Coast routes?
Well, the Savannah Way is the ultimate outback odyssey, a 3,700-kilometer journey through those contrasting landscapes. Think tropical rainforests, vast savannas, rugged gorges, and that red dirt of the outback. It's a chance to experience the remoteness, the silence, and that raw beauty of Australia's wild heart.
3,700 kilometers. That's a serious commitment. What are some of the highlights along the Savannah Way? Any must-see stops you'd recommend?
Oh, where to even begin? Starting in Cairns, you've got the Great Barrier Reef. But instead of just snorkeling or diving, why not consider taking a scenic helicopter flight over the reef?
Oh, wow.
The views are simply breathtaking, and you'll really get a true sense of the scale and beauty of this natural wonder. Then, as you head inland, you'll pass through Undara Volcanic National Park, and there you can explore ancient lava tubes. Imagine walking through these massive tunnels formed by flowing lava millions of years ago. It's a surreal experience.
Lava tubes. That sounds incredible. Okay, so we've got the Great Barrier Reef, lava tubes.
Yeah.
What else?
As you continue westward, you'll reach Cobbled Gorge. It's a stunning sandstone gorge, with cascading waterfalls. You can take a boat tour through the narrow gorge or maybe go for a hike along the rim for those spectacular views. Further on, you'll hit the Gulf of Carpentaria, and there you can experience that unique culture of the Gulf communities. Try some fresh seafood, maybe even go fishing for barramundi.
Okay, so we've got tropical rainforests, volcanic landscapes, a rugged coastline, and I see we've got Kakadu National Park on the list. That seems like a must-do on any Northern Territory adventure.
Absolutely. Kakadu is a World Heritage listed park with incredible biodiversity. You can explore those ancient rock art sites, cruise along billabongs teeming with wildlife, and hike through those stunning landscapes. But instead of just taking a, standard tour, why not consider a cultural experience led by an Aboriginal guide? Learn about those traditional hunting and gathering techniques, hear those Dreamtime stories, and gain a deeper understanding of the, interconnectedness of the land and its people.
Wow, that sounds like a truly immersive experience. So, after experiencing the wonders of Kakadu, where does the Savannah Way take us?
The next major stop is Catherine, home to the spectacular Catherine Gorge. Instead of just taking a boat tour, consider hiring a kayak and explore the gorge at your own pace. You can paddle through those towering sandstone cliffs, take a dip in those refreshing waterholes, and enjoy the tranquility of this ancient landscape.
Okay, so we're ticking off a lot of natural wonders on this route. Anything for the history buffs out there?
Absolutely. As you continue westward, you'll pass through historic towns like Tennant Creek, which played a significant role in the Gold Rush era. You can learn about the region's mining history at the Battery Hill Gold Mine and Mining Center. And maybe try your luck panning for gold.
Now, that's an activity I wouldn't want to miss. So we've got nature, history, a bit of outback adventure, and then we eventually reach the Western Australian coast and Broome. Right, Rye.
You got it. Broome is a unique town with a fascinating pearling history. Instead of just visiting a pearl farm, take a sunset camel ride along the famous Cable Beach. It's a magical experience watching the sun dip below the horizon as you stroll along that pristine white sand.
All right, now for our final route, we're heading to Victoria's high country. This one seems to have a different vibe from the coastal routes, more alpine beauty, winding mountain roads, historic gold mining towns. I'm picturing autumn foliage and cozy fireplaces.
You're spot on. Victoria's High Country offers a unique blend of history, adventure, and natural beauty. Driving through that alpine region is a highlight, thinking winding mountain roads, snow-capped peaks, and picturesque valleys.
And speaking of history, I see we've got a few gold mining towns on the must-visit list, Beechworth, Bright, and Mansfield. What makes these towns special?
Well, these towns are steeped in gold rush history. But instead of just visiting the museums, consider taking a guided ghost tour. A lot of these towns have, a rich paranormal history. You'll hear tales of ghostly encounters, haunted mines, and the spirits that still linger from the gold rush era.
Okay, that's adding a spooky twist to our historical exploration. Now, for our listener who loves those scenic drives, what's a must-do driving route in the high country?
The Great Alpine Road is a must. It's one of the highest sealed roads in Australia. It winds its way through the alpine region with breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains and valleys. Stop at Mount Hotham, which is a popular ski resort in winter, for panoramic views. Or visit the historic town of Harrietville. It's nestled in a picturesque valley and has, a real taste of alpine charm.
Okay, so we've covered 7 incredible routes, but I know there's more to an Australian road trip than just the destination. We've got some practical road trip tips here, things like packing essentials, apps for navigation, managing fuel and accommodation in remote areas, staying safe. What are your top 3 must-know road trip tips for Australia?
All right, well, here are my top 3 tips. First, download offline maps. Australia is vast and mobile coverage can be patchy, so having offline maps is crucial. I recommend the HEMA Explorer app. It's specifically designed for off-road navigation and includes detailed topographic maps, campsite information, and, points of interest.
Okay, that's a great recommendation. What about number 2?
Always pack for all types of weather. Australia's climate can be unpredictable, even within a single day. Bring layers of clothing, a waterproof jacket, a hat, sturdy shoes. Don't forget a fly net for those pesky bush flies, especially if you're venturing into the outback.
Good advice. Those Aussie flies can be relentless. Okay, and what about your final tip?
Embrace the unexpected. Don't be afraid to veer off course if something catches your interest. Chat with the locals, try new foods, explore hidden tracks. The best road trip memories are often the ones you didn't plan for.
Okay, that's great advice. Be spontaneous. Embrace the journey. I'm starting to get serious road trip wanderlust over here. Now, we've touched on packing essentials, but let's dive a bit deeper into that, especially for those planning to explore the outback or other remote areas. What are some must-have items that might not be on a, typical packing list?
That's a great question. Besides the obvious essentials like clothing, toiletries, and first aid supplies, here are a few Outback-specific items that can make your trip smoother and safer. A good quality torch, flashlight with spare batteries, a multi-tool with a knife, pliers and screwdriver, a sturdy rope for emergencies, duct tape for quick repairs, a water purification system, or tablets, insect repellent with a high DD concentration, and a solar charger to keep your devices powered up.
Wow, that's a comprehensive list. It sounds like packing for an Australian road trip is an art form in itself.
It can be, but with a little planning and preparation, you'll be well equipped for an unforgettable adventure. And don't forget about those packing cubes. Yeah, they're a lifesaver for keeping your luggage organized, especially if you're moving between different types of accommodation. And don't forget about those packing cubes. They're a lifesaver for keeping your luggage organized, especially if you're moving between different types of accommodation.
Okay, noted. Packing cubes it is. So, before we wrap things up, any other essential gear you'd recommend? Something specific to the Australian environment?
Definitely. Sunscreen and a wide-brimmed hat are non-negotiable. That Aussie sun is strong. Also, consider a fly net for those pesky bush flies, especially if you're planning on spending time in the outback.
Ah, good call. I can already picture those flies buzzing around. Okay, so we've covered the when, the where, and the how to prepare. Now let's get into some of those, nitty-gritty practicalities. We've got some info here about managing fuel and accommodation in those more remote areas. What are some tips for ensuring a smooth journey, even when you're, far from civilization?
It's all about self-sufficiency when you're venturing into the outback or even some of those less traveled coastal areas. Fuel stops can be hundreds of kilometers apart, so careful planning is crucial. And don't just rely on Google Maps or your phone's GPS. Those can be unreliable in remote areas where that signal can get pretty patchy. Invest in a good quality paper map or a dedicated GPS device, and make sure you know how to use it. HEMA maps are excellent for outback travel, very detailed and reliable.
Right, paper maps, it's back to basics.
hmm
And I imagine booking a hotel in the middle of the Nullarbor Plain isn't really an option. What about accommodation in those remote areas?
Yeah, camping is a pretty quintessential part of that Australian road trip experience, especially if you want the flexibility to explore those, off-the-grid locations. Invest in a good quality tent and sleeping bag. Comfortable sleeping mats are a game changer. And don't forget those essential camping supplies, a cooking stove, utensils, a lantern. But if you're not a seasoned camper, there are also options like station stays. They offer a taste of outback life on working cattle or sheep stations.
Station stays. That sounds interesting. I'll have to look into that. And speaking of essential supplies, I see we've got a whole section here about staying safe, particularly in those, remote parts of Australia where help might be hours away.
Yeah, staying safe in the outback requires a different mindset. It's about respecting that power of nature and being prepared for the unexpected. Always let someone know your itinerary and expected arrival times. Check in regularly, even if it's just a quick text. And don't underestimate the Australian sun. It can be incredibly harsh, even on cloudy days. Always wear sunscreen, a hat, sunglasses, and stay hydrated.
That's good advice. And we've got a whole section here about wildlife safety. It seems like encounters with those Aussie critters are kind of inevitable, but not all of them are cute and cuddly.
Absolutely. Australia has some of the most fascinating wildlife in the world, but it's really important to observe them from a safe distance. Never approach or feed wild animals. Be particularly aware of snakes, spiders, and crocodiles, and learn how to identify the venomous ones. If you're camping, store your food securely and dispose of rubbish properly to avoid attracting those unwanted visitors.
Right. No midnight snacks for the local wildlife. And one more thing that caught my eye in these sources is the importance of respecting Aboriginal culture. We're talking about, traveling through ancient lands with a rich history. What are some ways our listener can ensure they're being respectful and responsible travelers?
Yeah, respect for Aboriginal culture is paramount when you're traveling through Australia. Do some research beforehand about the traditional owners of the land you'll be visiting. If you're visiting a sacred site, be mindful of any cultural protocols. Like, for example, there are certain areas around Uluru that are off limits to photography. And remember, always ask for permission before taking photos of Aboriginal people.
Okay, that's really important to know. And I see we've got some info here about supporting Aboriginal businesses. That sounds like a great way to engage with the local communities and contribute to their economy.
Absolutely. Seek out Aboriginal-owned tour companies, art galleries, shops. It's a fantastic way to learn more about Aboriginal culture from, the people who know it best and support their communities directly.
All right, before we move on to those, specific route recommendations, any other must-know tips for making the most of an Australian road trip? Something that really sets this experience apart.
One thing that really defines that Australian road trip is that sense of, freedom and adventure. Embrace the unexpected. Don't be afraid to veer off course if something piques your interest. Chat with the locals, try new foods. That's how you create those, truly unforgettable memories.
Okay, that's great advice. Be spontaneous, embrace the journey. I'm starting to get serious road trip wanderlust over here. Now, let's get back to those specific routes. We left off talking about Victoria's high country, winding mountain roads, charming gold rush towns. It sounds idyllic, but what if our listener is craving something a bit more, wild, something truly off the beaten track?
Then we need to talk about the Savannah Way. This is Australia's longest driving route. It stretches over 3,700 kilometers from Cairns in tropical North Queensland all the way to Broome in Western Australia.
Whoa, 3,700 kilometers. That's a serious commitment. What kind of adventure are we talking about here? Paint me a picture.
Imagine this. You start your journey in Cairns, a gateway to the Great Barrier Reef, with those lush rainforests, those tropical vibes. Then, as you head inland, the landscape transforms into vast savannas dotted with termite mounds and eucalyptus trees. The air is thick with that scent of the outback. You'll cross raging rivers, navigate rugged mountain ranges, and camp under a sky ablaze with stars. It's a journey through the heart of Australia, where you'll encounter unique wildlife, ancient Aboriginal rock art, and the kind of silence that makes you feel truly connected to nature.
Wow, that sounds absolutely epic. What are some of the must-see stops along the Savannah Way? Any hidden gems you'd recommend?
Oh, there are so many. Starting in Cairns, you have the option of taking a scenic helicopter flight over the Great Barrier Reef. It's an unforgettable way to see the vast coral formations, the turquoise waters, and the diverse marine life that calls this natural wonder home. Then, as you head inland, you'll pass through Undara Volcanic National Park. Here, you can explore the Undara lava tubes. It's one of the world's longest lava tube systems. Imagine walking through these massive tunnels, some over 100 meters long, formed by flowing lava millions of years ago. It's a surreal experience and a chance to learn about the geological history of the region.
Lava tubes. That's definitely not something you see every day. Okay, so we've got the Great Barrier Reef, lava tubes. What else?
As you continue westward, you'll reach Cobbled Gorge. It's a hidden gem tucked away in the Gulf Savannah region of Queensland. This stunning sandstone gorge is a true oasis in the outback, with crystal clear water, towering cliffs, and abundant wildlife. Take a boat tour through that narrow gorge or challenge yourself with a stand-up paddleboarding adventure. You can also explore the gorge from above on a guided walk along the rim, taking in those panoramic views.
Okay, so we've got tropical rainforests, volcanic landscapes, a rugged coastline, and I see we've got Kakadu National Park on the list. That seems like a must-do on any Northern Territory adventure. What makes Kakadu so special?
Kakadu is a World Heritage listed park that's truly awe-inspiring. It's home to ancient rock art sites dating back over 65,000 years, diverse wildlife, stunning waterfalls, and dramatic escarpments. But instead of just ticking off those major sites, consider a cultural experience led by an Aboriginal guide. Learn about those traditional hunting and gathering techniques, hear Dreamtime stories, and gain a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of the land and its people.
That sounds like an amazing way to experience the true essence of Kakadu. Going beyond that, tourist trail and connecting with that ancient wisdom of the Aboriginal people. So after soaking up the wonders of Kakadu, where does the Savannah Way take us?
The next major stop is Katherine, a gateway to the stunning Nitmiluk National Park, home to the spectacular Katherine Gorge. Instead of just taking that, standard boat tour, consider a more adventurous option, a helicopter flight over the gorge. You'll soar above those towering sandstone cliffs, witness those cascading waterfalls, and get a bird's-eye view of this breathtaking landscape. It's an experience that will stay with you long after you've left.
Okay, you're really tempting me with these helicopter flights. So we've ticked off natural wonders, cultural experiences, anything for those, history buffs out there.
Absolutely. As you continue westward, you'll pass through Tennant Creek, a town steeped in gold rush history. Instead of just visiting the museum, head to Battery Hill Mining Center. You can explore the historic underground mine shafts, try your luck panning for gold, and even see a working stamp battery in action.
Now that's a hands-on history lesson I wouldn't want to miss. So we've got nature, history, a bit of outback adventure. And then we eventually reach the Western Australian coast and the pearling town of Broome, right?
Exactly. Broome is a unique coastal town with a fascinating history, beautiful beaches, and a laid-back vibe. Instead of just visiting a pearl farm, take a sunset camel ride along the famous Cable Beach. Imagine yourself perched atop a camel, slowly strolling along that pristine white sand as the sun dips below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the Indian Ocean. It's a truly magical experience.
Okay, so to summarize the Savannah Way, it's a 3,700-kilometer expedition through contrasting landscapes with a mix of natural wonders, historical sites, unique cultural experiences, and, a healthy dose of adventure. It sounds like the ultimate Australian road trip for those seeking something truly epic. Now, for our listener who's seeking a coastal escape with a touch of mystery and, unique wildlife encounters, we've got Tasmania's East Coast on the list. This one seems to be all about breathtaking scenery, those, unique Tasmanian vibes, and the thrill of spotting those elusive creatures.
Tasmania is like stepping back in time. It's a land of pristine beaches, ancient rainforests, snow-capped mountains, and a unique flora and fauna that's evolved in isolation from the mainland. The East Coast Road is a journey that really captures the essence of this, island paradise.
Speaking of unique wildlife, I see we've got Freycinet National Park highlighted on this route. What makes this park special? Beyond, that iconic Wineglass Bay.
Oh, Freycinet's a nature lover's paradise. While Wineglass Bay is undoubtedly stunning, I'd encourage you to go beyond those crowds and explore those, less traveled trails. The Hazards Trek is a challenging but rewarding multi-day hike that takes you through diverse landscapes, from coastal heathland and eucalyptus forest to granite peaks with those breathtaking views. It's a chance to truly immerse yourself in the wild beauty of Tasmania.
Okay, so we've got breathtaking views, unique wildlife, and a challenging hike. It sounds like Tasmania offers a perfect blend of adventure and tranquility. And what about those Tasmanian vibes you mentioned? What else makes this route special?
Well, Tasmania has a unique culture and a laid-back pace of life that's really refreshing. Along the East Coast route, you'll find charming towns like Bashino, a historic fishing village with a friendly atmosphere. It's also a great spot for wildlife spotting. Fairy penguins waddle ashore at dusk, and you might even catch a glimpse of a Tasmanian devil at the nearby Bachino Wildlife Park. Further south, you'll reach Coles Bay, the gateway to Freycinet National Park. Here you'll find cafes, restaurants, art galleries showcasing local talent. You've also got opportunities for kayaking, boating, and exploring the Freycinet Marine Farm, where you can sample delicious, fresh oysters.
Okay, now we're talking fresh seafood, local wines. I'm sold. So it seems like Tasmania's East Coast offers a perfect blend of natural beauty, charming towns, unique wildlife encounters, and those, quintessential Tasmanian vibes. It's the perfect road trip for those who want to slow down, soak up the scenery, and experience that authentic Tasmanian lifestyle. Now, for our final route, we're heading back to the mainland for a journey that seems to be steeped in history, adventure, and spiritual significance, the Red Centre Way. We're talking about traversing the heart of Australia, from Alice Springs to Uluru, with a detour to Kings Canyon. What makes this route so special?
The Red Centre Way is an iconic Australian adventure that takes you to the spiritual heart of the country. It's a journey through vast, ochre-colored landscapes where you'll encounter ancient rock formations, learn about the rich culture and traditions of the Aboriginal people, and witness the raw beauty of the outback.
It sounds incredible, and I see we've got Uluru or Ayers Rock highlighted as a must-see. What can our listener expect from this iconic landmark?
Uluru is more than just a rock formation. It's a sacred site that holds deep cultural and spiritual significance for the Anangu people, the traditional owners of the land. It's a place of immense power and beauty, and you'll feel it the moment you lay eyes on it. Instead of just witnessing the sunrise or sunset, consider taking a guided walk with an Aboriginal elder. You'll learn about the cultural significance of the rock, hear those ancient stories, and connect with the land on a much deeper level. The Mala Walk is a great option. It's a guided tour that takes you to Mitijulu Waterhole, a sacred site at the base of Uluru.
Wow, that sounds incredibly powerful. It's amazing to think that Uluru has been a sacred site for the Anangu people for over 60,000 years. It's so much more than just a rock formation.
Exactly. And remember, out of respect for the Anangu people, climbing Uluru is no longer allowed. It's considered a sacred site, and they believe that climbing it disrupts that spiritual energy of the rock.
Right, respecting cultural sensitivities is paramount when visiting such a sacred site. So we've ticked off Uluru on a Red Centre adventure. Where does the route take us next?
From Uluru, you'll head west to Keta Juta, also known as the Olgas. These are a series of 36 dome-shaped rock formations that are just as impressive as Uluru, but often overlooked by visitors. Take the Valley of the Winds Walk, a challenging but rewarding trail that leads you through the heart of Katajuda, offering those stunning views from different perspectives. You'll feel like you've stepped into another world, surrounded by towering rock domes, hidden gorges, and a silence that's almost palpable.
Okay, so more stunning rock formations and a chance to experience the serenity of the outback. What's next on our Red Center adventure?
The next stop is Kings Canyon, another breathtaking natural wonder located in Watarka National Park. Instead of just doing that popular rim walk, consider taking the lesser-known Giles Track. This challenging 6-kilometer loop takes you off the beaten path, offering stunning views of the canyon from different vantage points. You'll descend into the canyon, passing through the Garden of Eden, a lush oasis with a permanent waterhole, and climb back up to the rim, taking in those panoramic views. It's a challenging hike, but those rewards are well worth the effort.
Okay, so we're ticking off a lot of natural wonders on this route, and we're ending our Red Center adventure back in Alice Springs, right?
Exactly. Alice Springs is a vibrant outback town with a fascinating history and a strong Aboriginal culture. Explore the town's museums and art galleries, visit the Royal Flying Doctor Service Base, or learn about the region's flora and fauna at the Alice Springs Desert Park. But for a truly unique experience, consider taking a hot air balloon ride over the desert at sunrise. You'll soar above that red dirt landscape, witnessing the desert awakening as the sun casts its golden rays over the Spinifex and those sand dunes. It's a magical way to end your Red Center adventure.
Okay, so it seems like the Red Center Way offers a perfect blend of natural wonders, cultural experiences, outback adventure, and spiritual significance. It's the ultimate road trip for those who want to experience the heart of Australia. Now, before we wrap things up, let's get back to those practical tips for a moment. I know we talked about packing essentials, staying safe, but is there anything else our listeners should keep in mind when planning an Australian road trip? Anything specific to the driving conditions or that, road network?
That's a great question. One thing that might surprise some visitors is that the road network in Australia can be quite different from what they're used to. In some remote areas, the roads can be unsealed and quite rough, so it's important to have a vehicle that's suitable for those conditions. Check the road conditions before you set off, especially during the wet season, as some roads may be closed or impassable.
Okay, so a 4x4 might be a good idea for some of those more adventurous routes. Any other tips for navigating the Australian road network?
Yes, be aware of the distances involved. Australia is a vast country, and it can take several days to drive between major cities. Make sure you plan your itinerary carefully, allow plenty of time for driving, and factor in regular stops for, rest breaks. Don't try to cram too much into one trip. It's better to focus on a few regions and explore them in depth.
Right, don't try to cram too much into one trip. And speaking of driving, we've got a note here about road trains, those super long trucks we talked about earlier. What are some tips for sharing the roads safely with those giants?
Road trains can be intimidating, especially if you're not used to them. They can be up to 53.5 meters long, which is longer than a football field. The most important thing is to give them plenty of space. Don't try to overtake them unless you have a clear view of the road ahead for at least 2 kilometers. And always be aware of their blind spots. When overtaking, make sure you can see the truck's cabin in your rearview mirror before pulling back in.
Noted. Give those road trains a wide berth. Okay, now for our final piece of advice, let's talk about those apps and tools that can make an Australian road trip, smoother and more enjoyable. We've got some recommendations here for navigation apps, weather apps, fuel finder apps. What are your top picks for those essential road trip apps?
For navigation, I highly recommend Wikicamps Australia. It's a fantastic app for finding campsites, caravan parks, points of interest, and even fuel stations. It's also great for offline navigation, which is essential when you're venturing off the beaten track. Another great app is Fuel Map Australia, which helps you find the cheapest fuel prices along your route.
Okay, that sounds like a must-have. And what about weather? I imagine keeping an eye on the forecast is pretty crucial in a country like Australia.
Absolutely. For weather updates, I recommend the Bureau of Meteorology app. It's the official Australian weather app, and it provides accurate and up-to-date forecasts, warnings, and radar imagery. You can also set up weather alerts for specific locations, which is helpful if you're camping or hiking in those remote areas.
Okay, so we've got navigation, weather, fuel. Any other app recommendations? Something that might surprise our listener?
Yes. If you're interested in learning more about that night sky, the Skyview Lite app is a fantastic tool. You can point your phone at the sky and identify constellations, planets, satellites, even the International Space Station. It's a great way to enhance your stargazing experience, especially in those remote areas where that night sky is truly spectacular.
Okay, that's a cool one. So, with all of this amazing information, I think our listener is well on their way to planning an epic Australian road trip. We've covered everything from choosing the right route and season to packing essentials, staying safe, respecting local culture, navigating those long stretches of road, and even finding the best apps to enhance the journey. What a deep dive. I'm ready to hit the road myself.
It's been a pleasure exploring the world of Australian road trips. It's a country that's, best experienced on the open road with its diverse landscapes, friendly people, and unique culture.
It's been quite a journey already, even if we've just been armchair traveling so far. But you're right, there's nothing quite like hitting that open road and experiencing the magic of Australia firsthand.
Exactly. And while we've covered a lot of ground, both literally and figuratively, there's always more to discover. That's the beauty of road trips. They're all about embracing the unexpected and creating your own adventure.
So true. Now, I know our listener is eager to start planning, but with so many incredible routes to choose from, it can feel, a little overwhelming. Thinking back on all the routes we've discussed, from those coastal wonders to those, epic outback adventures, is there one that's particularly calling to your adventurous spirit right now?
That's a tough one.
Hmm.
They all have their own unique appeal. But if I had to choose just one, I'd say the Red Center Way. There's something about that raw beauty, the ancient energy, and the spiritual significance of the outback that, truly captivates me.
I can definitely see that. Those images of Uluru at sunset. It's almost a spiritual experience, isn't it? Plus, learning about the ancient stories and traditions of the Aboriginal people, connecting with the land and its history. It feels like a journey of self-discovery as much as a road trip.
Exactly. It's a journey that goes beyond just ticking off landmarks. It's about slowing down, immersing yourself in the landscape, and connecting with the ancient wisdom of the land and its people. And on a practical level, it's a route that's achievable in a reasonable amount of time. You could comfortably experience the highlights in a couple of weeks without feeling rushed.
Okay, you've convinced me. The Red Center Way it is. Now, before we send our listener off on their outback adventure, any final tips or insights, specifically for tackling the Red Center? Any hidden gems you haven't shared yet?
Here's one that's often overlooked. Pack a good book or two. There will be times when you're driving through those vast stretches of outback, and having something to read can help pass the time and enhance that feeling of solitude. Choose books that connect with the landscape or the history of the region, perhaps some Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, or a novel set in the outback.
I love that. It's all about setting the scene and letting yourself be transported by the words and the landscape. And I'm already picturing myself reading under a sky full of stars. Speaking of which, the outback can be incredibly harsh, especially during those, summer months. Any tips for staying cool, hydrated, and safe in that kind of heat?
Hydration's absolutely crucial. Drink more water than you think you need, even before you feel thirsty. Carry a reusable water bottle and refill it at every opportunity: fuel stops, rest stations, campsites. And don't underestimate the power of the Australian sun. Even on cloudy days, those UV rays can be intense. A wide-brimmed hat, sunglasses, and high SPF sunscreen are essential. And consider lightweight, long-sleeved clothing for extra protection.
All right, noted. Water, sun protection, a good book. Anything else we should add to our Red Center survival kit?
Here's a tip that can really enrich your whole experience. Learn a few basic Aboriginal phrases. Even a simple greeting like palia, which means hello, or nuntu, which means good, can go a long way in showing respect and fostering connection with those local communities. You might even pick up a few more phrases along the way.
That's such a thoughtful suggestion. It really highlights the importance of cultural sensitivity and respect.
hmm
When we're traveling through these ancient lands, it's about being a conscious and responsible traveler, not just a tourist.
Exactly. And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning of your journey. We've provided the map, the compass, and the tools, but it's up to you to chart your own course. Do your research, delve deeper into the topics that spark your interest, and most importantly, be open to those unexpected detours and discoveries that make a road trip truly unforgettable.
Well said. So, which route are you leaning towards after our deep dive? Let us know, and we can help you map out your dream Australian road trip. Safe travels and enjoy the ride.
Australia's magic lies in its diversity, from its vibrant coastlines to its rugged outback. Embrace the unknown, stay curious, and above all, Enjoy the adventure.
Yeah, it really has been, even if it's, just been us armchair traveling so far. But I think you're right. There's nothing quite like actually hitting that open road and experiencing the magic of Australia, firsthand.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that even though we've covered a lot of ground, literally and figuratively, there's always more to discover. That's the beauty of road trips. They're all about embracing the unexpected, creating your own adventure.
So true. Now, I know our listener is probably eager to start planning, but with so many incredible routes to choose from, it can be, I know, a little overwhelming. Thinking back on all the routes that we've discussed, from those coastal wonders to those epic outback adventures, is there one that's calling to your adventurous spirit right now?
Oh, that's a tough one. They all have their own, unique appeal. But if I had to choose just one, I'd probably say the Red Center Way. There's something about that, raw beauty and the ancient energy and the spiritual significance of the outback that truly captivates me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Those images of Uluru at sunset, it's almost a spiritual experience, isn't it? Plus, learning about those ancient stories and traditions of the Aboriginal people, connecting with the land and its history, it feels like a journey of self-discovery as much as a road trip.
Exactly. It's a journey that goes beyond, just ticking off landmarks. It's about slowing down, immersing yourself in the landscape, and connecting with that ancient wisdom of the land and its people. And on a practical level, it's a route that's, achievable in a reasonable amount of time. You could comfortably experience those highlights in a couple of weeks without feeling rushed.
Okay, you've convinced me. The Red Center Way it is. Now, before we send our listener off on their outback adventure, any final tips or insights specifically for tackling the Red Center? Any hidden gems you haven't shared yet?
Okay, here's one that's often overlooked. Pack a good book. Or two. There will be times when you're driving through those vast stretches of outback, and having something to read can help pass the time, and it enhances that feeling of solitude. Choose books that, connect with the landscape or the history of the region, maybe some Aboriginal Dreamtime stories or a novel set in the outback.
I love that. It's all about setting the scene and letting yourself be transported by the words and, the landscape. And I'm already picturing myself reading under a sky full of stars. Speaking of which, the outback can be incredibly harsh, especially during those summer months. Any tips for staying cool, hydrated, and safe in that kind of heat?
Well, hydration is absolutely crucial. Drink more water than you think you need, even before you feel thirsty. Carry a reusable water bottle and refill it at every opportunity. Fuel stops, rest stations, campsites. And don't underestimate the power of the Australian sun. Even on cloudy days, those UV rays can be intense. A wide-brimmed hat, sunglasses, and high SPF sunscreen are essential. And consider lightweight, long-sleeve clothing for extra protection.
Okay, noted. Water, sun protection, a good book. Anything else we should add to our, Red Center survival kit?
Here's a tip that can really enrich your whole experience. Learn a few basic Aboriginal phrases, even a simple greeting like, Palia, which means hello, or Nunti, which means good, can go a long way in showing respect and fostering connection with those local communities. You might even pick up a few more phrases along the way.
That's such a thoughtful suggestion. It really highlights the importance of cultural sensitivity and respect. When we're traveling through these ancient lands, it's about being a conscious and responsible traveler, not just a tourist.
Exactly. And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning of your journey. We've provided the map, the compass, and the tools, but it's up to you to chart your own course. Do your research, delve deeper into those topics that spark your interest, and most importantly, be open to those unexpected detours and discoveries that make a road trip truly unforgettable.
Well said. So which route are you leaning towards after our deep dive? Let us know. And we can help you map out your dream Australian road trip. Safe travels and enjoy the ride.
Australia's magic lies in its diversity, from its vibrant coastlines to its rugged outback. Embrace the unknown, stay curious, and above all, enjoy the adventure.